of these events, I'm putting in the event properties. And on those event properties, I want to be able to put a chart. Is there any documentation that I can follow for that? That will be nice.
What you're essentially doing is you're auto-naming events, right? It's going to be web and then an event type and then an action. So this is your naming convention, correct?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically from like something that I thought I'll be able to split it and then say for web and this part, how many of them did that?
Very curious if I get this right, but I don't think we're able to do it. The way I would challenge this concept is I would look into how you're using naming conventions. You have event type and action. So theoretically, I would say you have object action framework, button selected. I'm using something very simple, right? And then I would use properties to contextualize. Sign up completed would be an event. And then you could start filtering and say library, depending on how you implement it. So you're talking about web versus mobile. Theoretically, if you do client-side tracking, by default, you're going to be using different Amplitude libraries, which means in the library section, I'm going to get an overview of the library. So you'll be able to filter down. So that's one problem that's, let's say, gone. The alternative is that we could use statements which include contains or any other element. Like you could do like a global match, these type of things, which means we could break into events and we could say, okay, in this event that we have now called sign up completed, I have a set of properties and I would like to match on any and all of them based on a property value. So web and mobile would already be a property, right? If it would be my event design, I would remove it from the naming convention. I would move it as a property. Event type and action. Event would be button and action would be selected, for instance. Typically, Amplitude recommends object action in a past tense. You're free to do whatever you want, right? You can do whatever, but splitting things or using regex or partial filters at the event name won't work. It will work at the property level. So typically what we say is like use an event name and then use properties to contextualize because we can do filters, we can do group bys, we can do anything in there. Because the power of event-based design is actually the power of or helping you leverage Amplitude's to maximal capacity is actually by using properties as much as you can. I love group bys because they take all of the thinking work away for me. I just do group by a specific thing. I save the chart. And because I do a group by, new data will automatically be grouped by new property values. One additional other thing I would like to show you is because at some point there's a discussion about category. What you can do to visually organize your data is actually if you go into events, you can select a number of events, but you can assign categories to them. I'm going to call this category office hours, but this event is now under office hours, right? What does it mean? If I go to charts and I go to segmentation, I want to select events. You see that there's a couple of categories and office hours is now one of these categories. So you can use it in order to organize stuff visually, onboarding flows. You could even theoretically say, okay, I have a separate tracking plan entirely for mobile and a separate tracking plan for web because your product requires it. You could even bundle them this way, which allows you to pre-select a couple of things and you don't have to go through your entire list of events.
Okay, makes sense.